Hi guys, and welcome back. And we're now covering question 13 in our business analysis studies and our business analysis practice sample paper walkthrough. So let's go through this question and see what we can identify and see which area of knowledge they are testing us on. Let's look for the context of the question to see what really they're asking us about, what's the situation, and see if we can maybe identify what the correct answers are. What are they really asking us? Okay, so it says here, dynamic insurance describe how they deal with a motor claim as follows. So now this is the situation, and a dynamic insurance, this is their description of how they undertake a process. So now we can see here, so this is a little bit indicating that this is towards business processes, because they're describing how they deal with a particular process, which is the motor claim. It says here, normally a customer contacts us about the claim. Where a claim isn't resolved, legal proceedings might be required. These are only started when a senior claims handler makes the request. Any legal claims need to be started within 3 years of the accident. So where a claim hasn't been settled or legal proceedings started within 30 months, the system automatically reports this. In some instances, customers are unhappy with the outcome of the claim, in which they can raise a complaint. Now, the instructions are how many of each of the different types of business event are described here. So we can immediately identify that this, contextually, this question is in relation to a business process. So this is all about business process modeling and us analyzing business processes and improving business processes, which is a large part of business analysis work. And specifically, they are asking us about business events. So what do we know about business events? Business events are one of the things that make up a business process. It's essentially the thing that triggers the process. It's the thing that starts the process itself. And another thing that we should know about business events is that they can be categorized into 3 different types. They can either be internal, they can be external, and they can be time-bound. So the difference between these 3 things are that the internal business event is something that comes from within the organization itself. So is it a specific actor in the process, or an employee, or a system that is triggering something from inside the organization, such as an employee or a manager or a system? Or is it something external to the organization? Is it something outside of the organization? It's not their internal employees. It may be a supplier or a customer, someone who is not categorized as part of the organization itself. And then the final type of business event that we should know is the time-bound business event. So some things are literally happen based upon a specific point in time. And this is usually in relation to a specific system or a program or something like that triggers something in the organization, that triggers a process based on a specific time. Is it at the end of the month where a whole bunch of invoices are sent out, or a whole bunch of employees paid, or maybe at a particular time of the year? Maybe it's a Christmas marketing campaign that triggers a whole process where all these marketing events sort of take place along this process, or the steps in this process. So we need to clearly know what a business event is, because it's the thing that triggers a particular process. It's not the actual steps that happen, but it's the thing, the core thing that triggers a process. And we may be modeling the process. We may be creating our swim lanes and doing business process modeling. There's various different types of business process models that can be created. And sometimes we need to know what the business event is in order to do that. So if we read through this, we can even contextually see that this is describing a process. It's a little bit rough around the edges, but that's usually what happens is when you go into an organization as a business analyst and you are eliciting information, you're using investigation techniques to gather information from them. And maybe the particular area of business analysis that you're working on is with business processes, because maybe there's a problem with the process. There may be a reason why you need to model a process, such as we may be developing a new system where we need to understand the process and the complexities of it so that we can develop a software product based on this process. There's various reasons why we may need to analyze and build process models and understand business processes in an organization at all the different levels: the enterprise, the business process, the actor task, or the right at the task-based level. This is the actor task level. But it's really important for us to know the different types of business events. So what we should be looking at in analyzing this information here is looking for the business events. What are the triggers in this process? What are the main things that are sparking up this process? Is it a person doing something? Is it a particular system doing something? Is it from outside the organization? Is it inside the organization? Or is it a time-based thing? So let's see if we can identify any things here. Because if just before we do that, if we look at our answers here, it's very clear that they're asking us for the different categories of business events: internal, external, and time-based. And we have to count each of them to see which of these is the correct answer. So we'll first go through it, and we say here that normally a customer contacts us to tell us about a claim. So first off, that is a trigger. That will trigger a motor claim process. That triggers a motor claim process. So it may be part of an overarching process, or it may trigger its own process in itself. But if a customer contacts them to tell them about a claim, that's a trigger. But now we have to decide, is it internal to the organization? Is it external? Or is it time-bound? And very clearly, this is an external trigger. It's an external business event that is being described there. So we look at the next statement. It says, where a claim isn't resolved, legal proceedings might be required. So this statement here does not specifically mention any event or any trigger in the process, but it's just giving us some additional contextual information. Then it goes on to say, these are only started when a senior claims handler makes the request. So here they're indicating an actor, as they did before. The customer was the actor who was actually triggering the claim when they asked them, they were talking to them about the claim. In this case, the actor is the senior claims handler. He's the person that's actually triggering this business event. And it's where they make the request, the senior claims handler. So this specific role of the senior claims handler, it's indicating that this is a person that works from inside the organization. It's an employee. It's not someone who's outside, like the customer or like a supplier or a system, an external system. This is someone who is inside, and they're saying that this happens. So this legal proceeding, which is part of the process, is only started when the senior claims handler makes the request. So the senior claims handler is the actor. And when they're making the request, it's a specific event. It's very clear cut that this is a point in time in this process. And what happens is what was described in the statement below. It was talking about legal proceedings. So that's actually what happens. So the request here is now, we understand what this business event is, this trigger in the process. But is it internal, is it external, or is it time-bound? So we know that it is very obviously internal because the guy, he works inside the organization. So we've got one internal and we've got one external business event here. So if we continue, it says any legal claims need to be started within 3 years of the accident. So now this is now leading a little bit towards a time-bound thing because it's speaking about time-bound. And it says, so where a claim hasn't been settled or legal proceedings started within 30 months, the system automatically reports this. So the specific action that is taking place is the system, which is the actor in this process, and it's reporting. So it's sending out a report within a specific time frame. So within 30 months of the system identifying these things, it's now triggering something else. We can see that's a clear trigger in the statement here. And usually time-bound things are very, very often related to systems and automation because within a process, such as a system releasing invoices or such, they are specifically set up in the system. They're configured to do that. So now if we take this specific business, this third business event that we've identified here into the context of this question that we're answering, we've got one internal, we've got one external, and we've got one time-based or time-bound business event. So now, because if we look at all of these, most of these answers have only got 4 or 4 to 5. So we're pretty much looking for just one more. If we look here and it says, in some instances, customers are unhappy with the outcome of the claim, in which case they may raise a complaint. So there we go. The complaint is the trigger, the actor is the customer, and they're raising the complaint. There's nothing mentioned about time or an automatic thing being triggered there. And the customer, we know, is an external actor. He's coming from outside the organization's boundaries. So here in this context, and that's the end of it, there's no more business events or triggers for the process that we've identified here. But we can see that we've got 2 external events here, which are triggered by the customer actor. And we've got one internal event, which is triggered by the senior claims actor. And we've got one time-bound or time-based business event, which is triggered by the system actor, which is done automatically, where they send out the report. So if we look through these questions here, we've got A, which is 1 internal, 2 external, and 1 time-based. So there we have it. A is clearly the correct answer here. And then if we look quickly through B, 2 external, 2 time-based, no internal, that is incorrect. 1 internal, 1 external, 2 time-based. We didn't find any time-based ones. We only had 1 time-based one, not 2. We look at D, 3 internal, that's incorrect. We only had 1 internal. So clearly A is the correct answer here. So I hope that's given you a little bit of clarity in terms of business events and the triggers for business processes. And if you're a little bit unsure about this type of question, go over your studies of business processes and all the things that make up business processes. And in particular with, one of the aspects of business processes that are the business events, which are the triggers for the process, you need to know how to categorize them in terms of the 3 different types. So I hope that's given you insight into this, and that's covered question 13. And I hope if you ever get a question like this, it'll make it a little bit easier for you to answer it. So in the next one, we're going to be going through 14, and I'll see you there.